when you turn on the television and watch an NBA game, for example, you'll notice that all of the athletes on their Nike jerseys have different sayings about the Black Lives Matter movement. So this really ties in with Nike and their stand, against racial inequality. And this ties in with the brand activism. So my name is Katie Rago, and I will be going more into depth about what exactly brand activism is. So the first question here, what is brand activism? Well, according to Christian Sarkar and Philip Kotler, brand activism is, quote, consists of business efforts to promote, impede, or direct social, political, economic, and/or environmental reform with the desire to promote or impede improvements in society, end of quote. So basically, brand activism is a brand kind of sticking up for what it believes in and really making statements about their beliefs. So one huge example is Nike and Colin Kaepernick. So, the backstory, I'm sure you've heard. Colin Kaepernick, back around 2018, he decided to kneel during the national anthem. This was a huge uproar, and Nike actually backed him by that, and Nike posted a post, which you'll see in my PowerPoint, saying, believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything. And this was tied into Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. He believed in that so much that, he kneeled during the national anthem for the Black Lives Matter movement. So Trump actually did bash them for this, and it was a huge, ordeal between that. It was an extremely, extremely controversial event, and it was really like the first big stand of its kind from a major company. So I'm just going to begin by talking about the evolution of brand activism. Sorry, I can't talk. So previously, brands really didn't engage in this simply because the fear of losing customers, losing clientele. The people that are on the flip side, there can be a huge uproar and they could lose business due to that. But as I discussed, Colin Kaepernick and Nike, it was such a huge stand. So now this is more prominent than ever due to the sad murder of George Floyd. This really did spark a Black Lives Matter movement. So now brands are really posting and supporting for the cause. Not only is it for a good cause, but it shows that these brands really care about this movement and they're bought into this movement. So why brand activism? So it really helps with social responsibilities. For example, these large companies have so much social responsibility. They have such a large face all over, and it's important for them to use that face for a positive change. Another thing about brand activism, and it shows that the companies are value driven. So for example, if you contribute to a good cause as a company, it shows that you actually care and that you actually have values. It's good for the customers, the community, and really the world in general. Another important thing is that actions do speak louder than words, so a company can say this, that, and the other thing, but their actions really prove, how active they are to, make a change and just make the globe itself better. So one thing to think about is people originally boycotted Nike during that stand, which is something that's just, completely insane. Nike was boycotted, and now, people are backing Nike and really understanding the severity of the racial inequality finally. So there is a thing called woke washing. So this is, where brands will pretty much post things that seem to be inauthentic. So, just inauthentic claims, they don't really mean what they're saying. They're just trying to essentially, I would say, act like they're for a movement, even though they're really not. So this could really, mislead consumers. It could be viewed as inauthentic, and, it could negatively affect the brand itself because it just shows customers that they really don't care. Up next, there's progressive versus regressive brand activism. So regressive activism actually is negative. One example that I saw online was related to smoking companies. So they were like spreading things to benefit the company, even though they weren't true, and it ultimately hurt the customers. So it just really ultimately hurts the common good, and it's just not for a good cause. Another example is progressive activism. So this is really positive. So it impacts on the problems of society, and it spreads awareness for what these companies believe in. Next, there are 6 different categories of brand activism. They really do range. I'm just going to touch on those. So the first is social activism. This really relates to like equality, gender, race, age, the LGBTQ community. Next is legal activism. This is laws, tax, policies, employment. Up next is business activism. So this would be like the CEO, workers' comp, things like that. Economic activism. This is like income inequality, wealth distribution, and, minimum wage. Up next is political activism. This includes voting rights, and the different policies. And then finally, environmental activism. This relates, of course, to the environment, land, air pollution, and most importantly, conservation. Next, the effects of brand activism. So one of the most important things, which I'm going to discuss even more, is like community involvement and community engagement. More and more people get involved, and more people become part of the change. Another thing which I'm sure companies love, it's not what, it's really about, but it probably does increase sales. People buy their products. The most important, in my opinion, is people trust the brand and they respect the brand. That's one of the best things about a brand, is just knowing that, they're here to benefit the globe, they're here to benefit you, and they're just really doing the right things. One negative thing is that there could be hate from the opposing side, but, typically, who cares really? You're doing the right thing. And then I did see this quote here. It just said, like, brands really can't change minds, but they can affect change. And I think that's really important because, young kids all over the world look up to these big brands, these big names, and that really can be a change to the world. Up next is the community engagement that I said I was going to talk about. So one thing is it does increase brand awareness. More people seeing the name, more people seeing what they're doing to benefit the world. It's a great cause, increasing the brand awareness. Another thing is it's making it a better world for not only the consumers, but for also the employees. Both are really benefiting from that, and the consumers are happy, the employees are happy. That would probably make the employers happy too. Another thing is they're spreading awareness to the cause, which is extremely important because most of these causes, especially the Black Lives Matter movement, that's something that everyone should know about, and that's something that everyone should be a parent and just really try to strive towards the same goal to end racial inequality. Up next is, more people are joining the cause, more people are seeing these things and just joining it and wanting to be a part of the positive change. Also, companies have moral responsibilities, they are on the face of everything, and it's just really important that they deliver and make sure that people have a good viewpoint of them. So some of these things, it creates trust, values, good for the environment, a good cause, and it supports the common good. I'm pretty sure I have touched on this before, but one of the really, really important things is it shows that the company's trustworthy. That is so important when you're buying from a company, is that you're just buying from a trusted brand, someone that you could really trust and just want to keep supporting. And then I just wanted to include an example. So I know I've touched on that Black Lives Matter movement, but this is just such like a rise in the brand activism. So like companies like H&M, Walmart, Levi, Gap, Old Navy, Macy's, all over, people are really, really focusing on this. So just to conclude, brand activism, it's just, when a company is really promoting things for the common good. Thank you so much for listening. You guys have a great night.